Welcome to the Awesome Mountain Biking Podcast. I'm Brooks Lawson, your host, aka the Mountain Biking Realtor, and you can find all things Brooks at brookslawson.com. Today is March 7th, is the date we're recording, and I'm with Rhett Jones from Station Mountain Bike Park. Thanks for joining me, Rhett.
Yes, for sure.
I do want to give a quick disclaimer because I think there was some confusion about the last podcast. I am affiliated with the Awesome Ridge Riders, but this is not an official Ridge Riders podcast in any way. Also, I have no affiliation with any people that I interview, and I receive no compensation for the interviews. I was wearing a dialed shirt in my last interview, but I did actually buy that one, and I asked Rhett for a shirt, and he declined, so I didn't get one from him either.
Hey, no, that was at the park.
So, Rhett, you just wrapped up your first and second race at Station Mountain Bike Park, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, no, about to wrap up our second race.
Okay, you haven't done the second one yet.
Okay, soon though.
Yeah. So the first one was the trail party race, correct?
Yes, correct.
Tell me, how did that go?
Oh, that actually went really smooth. Putting tape on stakes in the ground for 3 hours made me really respect a lot more how much work goes into setting up a race. And I'm actually not really looking forward to setting up the next one because I thought it was going to be easy, and now I realize that it's actually going to be really hard. But the vibes are through the roof, so it was so worth it. I think it was our second biggest weekend behind opening weekend.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're ever going to top opening weekend, but hopefully soon.
Trail party always puts on a good show.
Yeah,
and
it's fun.
It's a good party vibe for sure.
Oh, the vibes are so good, and seeing 100 people camping, that was cool. Yeah.
So you told me you've done a few interviews. How many would you say that you've done thus far?
Thus far, probably around 10. I've done a lot of interviews. Yeah.
And I know when I was there were signs up for opening weekend that Netflix was shooting, or somebody was shooting video or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
That was for Netflix? Or?
It is hopefully for Netflix. So the documentary is done. You can see it on Vital MTB and YouTube, but we haven't really gone through the process of sharing the documentary throughout all the major streaming sites yet. The plan is to get it on Netflix. If we can make the right connections, we're going to try. And hopefully all of these other platforms too.
And what other interviews have you done? What companies and who with?
I've done one with Beta Camp, which is the entrepreneurship camp for high schoolers that I went to in summer of 2022. I did Single Tracks, Texas Monthly. Oh, there's so many that I'm missing. Mountain Bike Action. Trust me, there's a lot.
That's quite a few. Yeah. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
So the reason I want to have you on here today, I want us to tell us your story, the full story from beginning to end. So kind of start with your history with, biking, not necessarily mountain biking specifically. How did the idea for Station Mountain come about? How did you find investors? The whole story. So go ahead. I'm gonna let you take it.
All right. Sounds good. So it all started during COVID. My sports stopped. No games, and I was like, oh, I'm bored, and I'm in 8th grade, and I want to do something fun. And some of my friends are mountain biking, so I decided to hop on a mountain bike, and I was like, wait, this is so cool. And I was on this crappy $400 hardtail, and this was in March of 2020. And I started riding this BMX bike too for 3 months. I decided it was way too hard, so I decided to only do mountain biking because I couldn't even bunny hop, it sucked. And then I went to Angel Fire for my second time. Actually, I went a year prior, but I sucked. And that Angel Fire trip is what made me fall in love with the mountain bike. And I was like, bro, I'm going to do this every single day. This is so fun. There's no way I'm ever going to quit the sport. This is my thing. Is that the 7 days in Angel Fire? I just found my love. So then on from June 2020, I started riding every day. I started getting into filming. I always rode with people better than me. I actually started riding at Cat Mountain, when I wasn't that good. But Cat Mountain made me so good, so fast.
It has that effect.
I spent, I'm not kidding. I was at Cat Mountain for 5 days a week for all of late 2020, all of 2021. And I got pretty good pretty quick. I was riding 20 plus hours a week racing, and I really fell in love with it. So then I got into trail building. The first trail I actually built was Grom Trail at Cat Mountain. It's a small little single black trail. And I found out that trail building was really fun, and I loved it. But at this point in time, I was 16 years old. Zero entrepreneurial ambitions at all. Being an entrepreneur, a business owner, didn't even cross my mind. Didn't even think of it as being a possible future life path for me. And then about 2 years later, summer of 2022, two things happened. So first of all, I joined Beta Camp, which is this online program to teach teens about entrepreneurship. That got me really hyped on entrepreneurship. I was like, oh, I could actually make this happen. And I successfully pitched with a group of people to make Ref Hollow Bike Park in Lakeway, which is no longer a project. But it showed me that this whole making a bike park thing could be possible.
Yeah, I actually want to hear more about the Ref Hollow bike, because I was like blown away that anybody would, number one, let you do that, or that it stayed standing as long as it did.
Yeah.
So what was the process like to get approved for that?
Oh, so I had a few connections to these dads in Lakeway that have been wanting to make a bike park for a while, but, never really got the spark to do it. And I was kind of the guy that pushed them over the edge of like, hey, let's actually go make this happen. But they had all the connections to the HOA, the neighborhood. Like, I made the pitch deck, but they did all the talking. I mean, I wasn't really involved in founding Ref Hollow that much. And then we got approval. Didn't build until November because it was so hot throughout summer. You couldn't really find builders. I mean, it was kind of a hard thing to get started. So it was like a 6-month period between getting the approval and actually building the park. And building it, I was out there for 2 weeks straight with 2 other builders and got it halfway done. And then I just had a lot of other things fall on my plate. I was out of town for 3 weeks. And then once I got back in town, Station Mountain pitches were starting. And I just kind of decided to move on from Ref Hollow, which in hindsight, probably one of my biggest L moves, bro. I kind of caused a lot of beef there for leaving a half-done project and not being hyped on it. Because I wasn't hyped on it. It was like a half-finished bike park, even though I really should have finished it. That was one of my biggest mistakes. I should have finished Ref Hollow. I should have showed more respect to that community and the builders there. But once I saw like a potential of raising $3 million and making the best bike park in Texas, I didn't really want to focus on Ref Hollow anymore. So I moved on.
Did you ever run into any problems with like soccer moms in the neighborhood that got upset that it existed?
A little bit, but honestly, not as much as you think.
Really?
That community was generally supportive of the bike park, and
interesting.
Also, I also kind of feel bad about this. The soccer moms always got mad at like the dads working on the project and not me. So like I never really got any hate. They're like, oh, cool kid, cool ambitious kid, but they'd like yell at the 50-year-olds, and then it was kind of my fault. But yeah.
So glad I interrupted you. What happened after Ref Hollow?
After Ref Hollow, well, I kind of just gradually moved away from it and didn't really show up anymore. And in January 1st, pretty much of 2023, is when I got all of the entrepreneurial motivation to go ahead and make the best bike park in Texas. To, not like a small 40K park that I work on with people. I'm talking like a full on, let's go raise $3 million. Let's get 12 employees. Let's make a for-profit bike park a business, like the big, real deal. And in like 6 months before then, like in June of 2022, I would have thought that raising money and making a bike park as a high school would have been outright impossible. No way I could ever do that, right? But because of Beta Camp, and mainly because of my mentors at school and my masterpiece program at school, which I can get into, all of these entrepreneurs in my life told me, Rhett, you can make a business as a high schooler. Rhett, you can actually go make this bike park happen. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but raising $3 million at your age, like, you can totally do it. Like, just go ahead and try to reach out to investors and just see what happens. Maybe you fail. Just come on. Mm-hmm. Like, this is way more possible than you think. And after I had like 10 of these really impressive entrepreneurs, like telling me in one-on-one conversations that I should go ahead and try to make this happen, I was like, man, that's crazy. I guess I will. And
do you want to name those folks?
Name those folks?
The ones that had the one-on-one conversations with you?
Yeah.
Go for it.
I mean, I guess so. Salman, he actually invested in the park, was the leader of Beta Camp. He was a really cool motivational guy, but he wasn't like an old 50-year-old investor. He was like this 24-year-old startup founder that kind of knew my humor. Mm-hmm. That was cool. Joshua Baer is the owner of Capital Factory, and the way I met him was funny. I actually met his son on like a random trip in the Caribbean, and we just started talking about mountain biking. They were like, wait, do you live in Austin? wait, do you know about mountain biking? Wait, your dad is the owner of Capital Factory? And then I was like, what? And then I went back to Joshua Baer and I was like, hey, I know this is the randomest email ever, but like, I just met your son. I'm trying to, I have this random idea of making a bike park. I just want to talk about entrepreneurship. But then he really motivated me to go out and chase my dreams of making this bike park happen. And none of these kids would know me, but I always read online stories about teen entrepreneurs. Like, I haven't spoken a word to them at all, but I read this news story about this like girl in Dallas who raised like $2 million, like started a candy business, and I was like, oh, she's in high school. What, she did that? And then Eric Zhu, this kid in California that raised like $20 million at 16 years old, like from a school bathroom. It's a crazy story. You can go look it up. And all these other kids who like made businesses as high schoolers, and I was like, dude, that can be me. No way that can be me. And the biggest one, the biggest motivator of them all, was at my school, Alpha. It's this tiny private school in downtown. I'm the first graduating class. It's a startup school. It's really weird. There's like no classrooms, no tests. And the people at that school always drilled this thing into me of like, hey, you got to make a masterpiece, which is a super ambitious project for a high schooler to do. So throughout your 4 years of high school at Alpha, all the students are supposed to make a super ambitious project, not just like a senior capstone project, like something that is as impressive as being an Olympian in high school. And they were like, Rhett, we want you to go ahead and make this masterpiece happen, because they didn't really start the masterpiece program until I was a junior. Like 9th and 10th grade, the masterpiece program just wasn't really a thing. And then the masterpiece program started, and then all these people at my school were like, Rhett, you should go take a huge leap. Like, Rough Hollow is not it, bro. Like, you need to go raise $3 million and make the best bike park in Texas. You need to make a whole business as a high schooler. And I'm like, that seems way too ambitious. There's no way I can do that. But these people at my school just kept on telling me that it was possible, and that I needed to change my mindset, and then I just needed to go out, make a pitch deck, message investors, and see if it goes anywhere. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll try. So basically, all in all, here's the summary. After hearing the motivational speeches from hundreds of entrepreneurs, and after compiling my resume, January 1st, 2023, that's when I officially started, put my foot in the ground and said, I'm going to make this happen. So it started there. So the real story starts January 1st, 2023. Yeah. So then I was like, all right, where do I start? I guess I got to make this happen. So I made a pitch deck, like a 10-slide pitch deck that you can like something on Google Slides about, hey, if we make the best bike park in Texas, it's going to cost this much. We should do it in Texas because it is the only place in the world with sufficient terrain, a bunch of riders, and a lack of bike parks. You go to Utah, think about it. You have so many bike parks. Yeah, you have a bunch of riders, you have good terrain, but it's saturated. You go to Florida, yeah, you have a bunch of riders, but there's no terrain. And Vermont, like, yeah, it's full of bike parks, and there's not that many riders. Like, Vermont would be the worst place to do it. So I was kind of adding up the factors, and I realized that out of all places in the whole world, Texas is the only place in a free market economy with a bunch of riders with a lack of bike parks and sufficient terrain. So I was like, all right, I think it's only going to work in Texas, so I'm glad I live here. And that's the general pitch I gave to investors. So
yeah, I think Spider Mountain went far too long without any competition, and I think it showed. And I think it showed when you came along that I think things changed, and it was pretty noticeable at Spider Mountain.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, I don't want to dog on Spider Mountain.
No.
So, I got to say this really quick.
Yeah.
There's so many people online that are like, oh yeah, Spider Mountain sucks, bro. Station Mountain is so much better. Like, I'm like, I don't believe that. And I don't want people to talk about that. Like, all the beef you see between Station and Spider is all third-party beef. Like, none of the actual crew at Station Mountain or the actual crew at Spider Mountain, like, hate the other park. In fact, we really support the other park. Like, I have ridden Spider Mountain a lot, and, like, I race there, and it's awesome, and, like, their employees go to Station, and we talk. It's not like we're homies, and we're not hating on each other at all. But there's all this third-party beef that tries to make it a big deal, like, and I wish those people would just stop.
Yeah, I mean, they talk a lot at my workplace about the abundance mindset. Is like, you know, we're all at my place, we're all competing with each other, but we're really like, we're very collaborative. We work together and help each other. And I think that's super important in an industry. And certainly you and Spider both serve the benefit from each other, because somebody could come out there for a weekend and spend a day at Spider and spend a day at Station.
Which they do all the time.
Yeah.
I see so many people coming from Dallas and Houston that do the one day or the 3-day weekend with Reveille involved. And I think it's actually getting more people riding.
Yeah,
I
so
don't think it's hurting each other's business.
there's no good reason for any sort of adversarial mentality, I don't think.
No, not at all. But anyway, back to the story. All right.
Yes.
So I got sidetracked. Okay, anyway, I made the pitch deck and I found people on LinkedIn with both mountain biker and investor in their profile. And in fact, I made a list of every single person on LinkedIn with mountain biker and investor in their profiles. It was like 550 people. I messaged every single one saying, "Hey, I'm a 17-year-old making a bike park. Texas's best bike park. Like, here's my whole pitch. Like, here's how much it'll cost. Like, hey, if you're interested, let's talk more." And then I got like 10 responses of the 550. So not only did I technically get told no, like all but 10 times, but just like ghosted. And I was like, man, that's kind of disappointing.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
so like the first step, I was so hyped to get into this entrepreneurship thing, and I got 10 responses. Like, not even anything close to an investor after getting so hyped to get into the entrepreneurship thing. So that was kind of hurtful. And then just to add on top, all the 10 investors who were potentially interested said, "Hey, you need land," or then we're like not going to do it. And I started messaging every single ranch owner in Texas with more than 300 feet of vert within 2 hours of Austin, which, by the way, took deep research. Like, I had to message realtors as if I were going to buy a property just to ghost them so I could get the contact info of these guys.
no, you shouldn't be telling me that.
Yeah. So then I got the emails, phone numbers, and I wrote 123 handwritten envelopes, cold calls, emails to every single ranch owner that fit the requirements. And not only did these guys not ghost me, every single one, 123 out of 123 said, "No, I'm not allowing a bike park on my property."
Wow.
And then at that point, 123, like every single potential landowner said no. Like 10 guys responded, like 0 interested investors. And like, it just sucks because I was so hyped to get into entrepreneurship with literally off the bat, everyone said no. And this was like March 1st at this point, like 2 months went by and I was just like, man, I think I want to give up. I really did. Like, I wanted to persevere, but I mean, everyone's saying no off the bat. It just didn't even seem remotely possible. So I thought about giving up. And I went back to my mentors and they're like, "No, this is the thing. You have to keep on persevering." And they showed me all these like kind of cliche stories about persevering in entrepreneurs and what happens to them in the end. It was super cliche. And I was like, all right, you know what? Okay, I guess I'll try for 1 more month and let's just see where it goes. And then some good news started happening. I reached out to investors again with like a different pitch. I revised my pitch deck, made it better, and people started to get interested. And they're like, "Oh, I actually might want to invest in this. You just need to get land." And then through one of the potential investors, he worked at this company where he knew a guy who could invest in land, like not an already owned cattle ranch leasing from them. This is like outright purchasing land where I would lease from him, right? And he's like, "Hey, if you find me a property that I can purchase, go ahead and do a temporary lease with me. We can make it happen. It just needs to fit these requirements and it needs to make financial sense." And I was like, okay. So I started looking for properties. There's one property on the whole entire Texas market for sale with more than 300 feet of vert within 2 hours of Austin. That was for sale. So then I messaged the guy and I was like, "Hey, this is the one property that we should make it work." And he's like, "All right, I'll give you a $45K per month lease." And I was like, "What? No, that's way too high." I was like, "Man, maybe I could squeeze some numbers to make that work." And I messaged these other bike park founders for advice, and they like laughed when they heard 45K a month. So I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess not." So then I actually negotiated him to do 25K per month plus 40% equity. So still really high. But the goal from day one was that this was going to be a temporary lease where two things would either happen. One, we start making enough money to get over 25K a month, which actually might happen. Like, we're kind of on track to hit that. Or we sell the property to a guy that doesn't need a land lease. And that's what we're trying to do. I mean, I think we're going to get over break even, but it's not going to look good for investors with the current 25K a month. So something that we're trying to get around more. But anyway, this is a year later. Back then, I was like, wait, I can get property, land lease that is like kind of sort of somewhat doable. You know what? Sure, let's make it happen. Like, this is the only way that I can get property. I'll just have to cope with the high land lease. This is my only option. I got to make it happen. So I went back to him and said, "All right, let's make it happen. I'm going to get investors by the property." And then I started pondering the situation thinking, man, I'm about to make a $3 million deal. Like, when literally 9 months ago, I thought this was absolutely impossible. That is pretty crazy. So he went ahead and bought the property for $2.8 million. And I went back to my investors and said, dude, we just got a $2.8 million property. Like, y'all got to invest y'all got to invest the $350K. No way the $350K is hard to get if I get a $2.8 million investor, right? Mm-hmm. But no, it's super hard to get because everyone wants to invest in land because, like, worst case scenario, you get all your money back.
Right.
And like $350K when you can go to $0K if it goes worst case scenario, like no one wants to invest in that. So these investors weren't interested. So then I was like, I only have $30K right now, like only $30K of the $350K that I need, and I got like 3 weeks to get it. This is crazy. And I was on this 3 week crunch time. Now this was in like late May and early June. So I did the LinkedIn thing again, where I messaged a bunch of people on LinkedIn, mostly the same people. And I went more than that. I went onto local mountain biking Facebook groups, like on the Austin Dallas mountain biking Facebook group, saying like, hey, I'm a high schooler making a bike park. If you know any investors, let me know. And I way more than that. I started going to these startup conferences in downtown because I knew that I needed to do more networking than just LinkedIn, right? So I was working like 12 hours a day, just on my computer, like, which for me, my personality is really weird. Like, I like actually was not riding 7 days a week because I had to get this done. Yeah. And dude, I was on my grind. So I went to all these conferences, LinkedIn, Facebook, one-on-one networking, emails, all this. And basically after learning networking techniques, after learning cold email techniques, and whenever someone said no, I would ask them for 5 connections. So I was like, hey, how about 5 people that you know that might be interested? And I actually, believe it or not, because I learned the hard way, was able to raise $350K within 3 weeks. I couldn't raise $350K over the course of 5 months. But once it came time, once I was at crunch time, using these networking techniques, cold email things, and then cold calls, I closed $358,000 in late June, early July. $2.8 million property closed, and it happened. And then like one day I woke up and looked at my bank account, and I was like, I have $350,000 in my business account, and I'm 17. Like, it was so wild. And I don't know, for those who know me, like, I'm definitely not your humorously average dude. So I went back, like, I don't know. I guess when I talk to people, I don't come across as that smart for like my mountain bike friends. So I went back to them and I was like, yeah, look at this. Like, I have $350K. And they were all like, no way. And they like didn't believe it. They didn't believe it at all. And that actually brings me back to a thing. In February of 2023, I told them, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make the best bike park in Texas. I'm going to get investors. And they all called me crazy. And they're like, yeah, whatever. Like, none of them believed it. And I went back and I was like, dude, there's $350K in my business account right now. Do you see this? Like, this is happening. This is so wild. And they're like, nah, bro, ain't no way that's real.
They didn't believe you, huh?
No, but then after I talked to them, they're like, yo, no way, that's real. And then they're like, dude, it's happening. And then I was full of excitement. I was like, there's money. I have money. This is crazy. And then that kind of happened like right on my 18th birthday as I like closed the investment, and then reality struck, and I was like, I have money, like I have land, like my life path is going to be completely different. And I realized like I need to go build a bike park. Like I actually need to go live on this property and start making trails. I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy to think that I persevered and that all of this happened going from a kid who didn't believe that making a bike park was remotely possible or making a business was remotely possible to like having that money in the span of less than 10 months. That was wild. And it was wild to think about. And, you know, I'm still definitely not a mature guy at all. And it's just not at all. And it's kind of weird to think that like I had that much control, and I was like, how do these investors believe me? Seriously, I was like thinking this. But yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people see like a young entrepreneur, like somebody reaching out to them to start a business, and you know, some people invest to make money, and some people invest in things that make them happy. You know.
Yeah.
And I think seeing a young entrepreneur that wants to be successful and like asking the kind of questions that you are, like nobody who's not business savvy is asking them those questions.
Yeah. And also on that note, I want to make some clarification for some people on the story. Some people hear like, oh, he raised $350K. Like he just got his daddy's country club friends, or like, oh, he raised $350K. that's because people donated the money. Like, no, these are serious equity investors. These are like guys like these are angel investors. Like,
Well, they were investments, not donations, right?
yeah, like investments. Like these are people who have equity. It was like 358K for a 20% stake to be specific. That like are all in the bookkeeping and the financials and like plan on making their money back. The total family friends investment was $19,000. Like the investment is like serious investors, and it's not something that I had like my dad's connections or anything. Total family friends is like 19K. So like this is a legit investment. Like people that plan to make their money back and will. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then it was July, and I realized I can't just bullshit this. I can't just get friends out here to start making trails. I need to like hire builders. I need to go out and get proper trail builders, professional, and make 23 trails and make a real bike park. So I just started messaging random people that I saw did projects out throughout the nation and said, hey, can you come here for like a 9-week project? Some guys from Alabama, South Carolina, and Arizona came over in their vans, and I rented about 100K worth of machines, got 7 skid steers and mini excavators to the property, all the hand tools that we needed, the buildings, the water lines, the fuel tanks, and like 100 more things to the property. And we all sat down. It was like August 28th to be specific, and said, all right, this bike park's going to open on November 3rd. We haven't built a single trail. I want 20 trails done by November 3rd. Here's my basic idea of how the trail should work. And we got to work. So right off the bat, I sucked at managing, dude. I was a bad manager. I got into a lot of arguments with the builders. I kind of just let them dominate me and take control of me when I was like, hey, let's build the trail this way. And they said, no, let's build it this way. And I like tried to be a little bit pressing with it, but no one wants to listen to a high schooler that hasn't really built trails before.
They didn't respect you.
No, they didn't respect me. And they're like, I'm going to build this trail how I want to, except Greg. Greg DuPont is a great guy.
Shout out
I love
to
Greg. Yeah. Shout out to Greg. No, he was also very good at always keeping the vibes pretty chill. But I mean, I don't want to hate on any of the builders at all, because I totally get what their minds are thinking. Like, oh, I don't listen to like a high score tell me what to do. Like, I want to build my own trail. That's just a trail builder mindset. I'm not hating on any of the builders of the project, and I really respect them all. It was just frustrating because I wanted to get my bike park done, and the thing is that I sucked at managing. I couldn't tell people what to do, and I just let them take advantage and take control of me, which I don't mean that in a negative way towards them. It's just what was going on. And it wasn't going well. So we were like 3 weeks into building. Trails weren't being built as I wanted to. The tech trails weren't coming along. I wasn't really even I wasn't even able to be there that often because I had to be at school like 4 or 5 days a week. So I told my school, like, hey, look, Station Mountain, it's not being built as I wanted to. And I want to make the best bike park in Texas. I need to be at school never for the next 9 weeks. Yeah. And then
how did that go?
Yeah. Well, actually, they were supportive of it, because they were like, oh, this kid's making some serious progress on his masterpiece, so we need to have like an advertisable student for our future to show that our first class is successful. Yeah, sure, we'll let him do it.
They sound like a very progressive school.
Yes, very, very interesting school. Very interesting school. And also, on that note, though, there's still a lot of other really cool masterpiece projects at Alpha. I don't want to act like I'm like the only one or the first one. I mean,
tell me about some of those.
Yeah, so some girls making a teen dating app. Some other girls doing a bunch of like cancer research stuff, and she's going pretty far and like has a bunch of hype on social media. And some other girls becoming an author, like writing all these newsletters and books and stuff, projects like that. And we only have like 8 people in our first class. We only started the masterpiece program like a year and a half ago. So it's still really in its beta stages, hence why not that many projects, but it has a bunch of potential. But when it comes like real masterpieces, yeah, I'd say I'm like the first one to make a real masterpiece, but it's like a bunch more in the future. And I don't really even treat that as like a flex or anything. But anyway, back to the story.
Sure.
Yeah. So I said, all right, so this is like mid-September. And I was like, hey, look, not going well with the builders. I need to be there. Just let me be there. And they're like, okay, sure. Go ahead and live at Sage Mountain. So then I was able to start working 5 or 6 days a week. And then building started to get better. And a good reason why is Steve Gonzalez. So he kind of noticed what was going on, and he's like, Rhett, you're like my lost son or something like that. I don't know. And he's like, I don't know, maybe like a nephew or something. And he's like, I need this kid to succeed. Like, I see my 18-year-old self in you. And he's like, I see that you're not managing that well. Look, I'll be your project manager. Let's get this done. And Steve was so supportive, bro. Like, Steve, like, kind of went away from his normal current life to literally just help me at Station Mountain. He didn't like the job, but he pursued through and he helped out so much throughout those 8 weeks. So I really don't know what I would do without Steve. And I really want to give a big thank you and shout out to him for kind of saving the whole project and getting it together. I really don't think we would have built Station Mountain successfully.
He seems like a really great guy.
Without Steve. Yeah. He's cool. I mean, he's interesting. Very interesting character. But yeah. So he came in. So I love that. And then builders started to listen to him. So I'd tell Steve what to do, so he'd tell them, and then builders would actually listen. Yeah. And then the lines are actually starting to come together. And now, since I was there all the time, I could just focus on the single track tech trails, because I was really good at building these single track tech trails on a machine. Like, I'm okay, but I'm not as good as the professional builders. Mm-hmm. And then started to crank out more and more trails like that. And then most of the Alabama builders left in early October. So at this point, okay, it's looking way, way better than it was in mid-September. We made so much progress in 3 weeks. Steve got stuff down. I started building more tech trails. Like, we have 4 weeks until opening. It's looking pretty good. And I was still sucked at managing. Like, I was not acting like a boss. I was just acting like a kid that didn't put his foot in the door. And like, that's one of my biggest mistakes. I wish I was able to be more assertive.
Well, live and learn.
Yeah, live and learn indeed, and learn a lot. But then we came into a problem where we had to get so many logistics set up. We had to get a trash system set up, porta potties, work on the septic. We need to buy tractors. We need to get trailers built, shuttles built. We need to set up the containers with like the AC and the planks. We need to get rental bikes. We need to make a shop. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And I just wasn't even able to build trails anymore, because I had to do all this online work. I had to order all this stuff. I had to set up all the online systems, the payment system. And for the last 4 weeks of the project, I wasn't really putting any shovels in the ground, because I just had to set up all of the logistics. But I got to work, and I made a whole list of like 500 things I need to get done by opening. And just one by one, every single day, I got these tasks done, all the boring chores.
Yeah.
But the mission is in mind. So even when I was doing the boring chores, I was like, oh, this is so fun, because the grand mission is so cool.
Yeah.
And finalized the trails over those 4 weeks. And then the vibes are getting better. I was like, oh, right, we're 2 weeks away from opening. But ever since August 28th, it's actually gotten better. And we slowly got better and better at building. And November 2nd rolled around, and it was kind of like a last day build panic of like, oh, we have to get everything set, and like the shuttles weren't working and all this and all that. But we got it set, and then we opened on a Friday on purpose, because there's less riders on weekdays. So we could have like a basic opening day with November 4th being the real opening day.
Like a test run.
Yeah, like a test run opening day. And I told everyone when they got here, I was like, look, it's not going to go smooth on opening weekend, but I'm so glad you're here and supporting the park. And everyone was like, yeah, I don't care at all. And
well, I was there. I think it went well.
Yeah, and like, yeah, we had minor issues on opening weekend, but it went smooth, and it was like probably like the best weekend of my life to see like all those people there. And I was like, bro, how did I generate all this demand? Like, I was at high school, like, oh my god, I have a business now. Like, I have customers, like, I have employees, I have people at the bike shop, I have people driving shuttles, I have builders. Like, it was a real thing, and I was astonished. Yeah. I was so astonished. It was crazy. So then, as I also look back in the build process, I want to give a huge thank you to my ranch neighbor, Justin, which a lot of y'all might see around Station Mountain. All of the ranch maintenance tasks, such as fixing the well, building the road, seeding, random ranch-related maintenance tasks, Justin helped with that the whole project. Because I actually remember back in July, I was like flagging these trails, and this old ranch dude stopped by, and I was like, oh, I'm about to get a talking to. But he was the nicest guy ever. And he's like, hey, I'm your ranch neighbor. What are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm a kid making a bike park. And he's like, no way. And then he's like, I'm down to help you in any way possible. Look, you might get some stingy people around here, but I'm on your side. And like, I'm down to help you in any way for this bike park. And since then, he's been working every single week on ranch maintenance, still up to this day. And he's been super nice, super inviting to his home. He's a super funny guy. He has a son, Garrett, 8 years old. Didn't know what mountain biking was 5 months ago. And it's like one of the best 8-year-old mountain bikers I know now. He rides there all the time because he lives right next to the bike park. And so on and so forth. But that whole family has been amazing. I also don't know how I do this without Justin. So That
So
was cool.
did he volunteer for the whole thing?
No, paid. I mean, I don't. We didn't really get that many volunteers.
Sure.
So. Yeah, no, it's cool. And then so I guess the other builders to mention, Dial Dirt is like the crew from Alabama that came, and they built all of 75 hits, like the whole top to bottom run. That was their trail. And again, I want to specify when I say like I got in arguments with the trail builders and whatnot. It's not like I disliked them. Like I totally get their reasoning for not wanting to listen to high school. Like there's nothing wrong with that at all, and I totally get it. And they built a sick trail, and like it was very successful, and couldn't have done it without them, because like the 75 hits trail is like the most essential trail at station, and that took a bunch of work. Like that bottom part, crazy amount of work and a lot of skill too. And Alfonso is a guy from Arizona that came. He's super cool. He built the El Cinco line in Burn Park, and Greg's whole crew was the rest. So Greg built like the rest of the flow lines at station, and then the tech trails were mainly me. So, and then we had a few others. There's a guy named Jonathan there, builder from Houston. He was cool. He was the best guy at listening to me. And I think Jonathan was one of the most like underplayed at builders at station. Huge respect to him. And this other guy named Logan that actually stuck around for like 4 months after too. Old Spider Mountain builder, in fact. And he always had the best interest for the park and the best interest for me, the best interest financially. So that meant a lot. And I don't know, there's a bunch of other guys to think. Like, look, I'll be honest. I could go on for an hour thanking people, to be honest. I could go on for so long because there's so many people to thank. There's so many investors to thank. But like, if you're involved at Station Mountain, like, I didn't have beef with you. That's all I'm gonna say. Like, and I'm very thankful for everyone's help. I'm not like a hating guy. And there's so many people involved, like, and all the investors too. Dude, there's so many people to thank. But yeah, so many people made this project.
Can you talk about some of your larger investors and like what their backgrounds are and what they usually invest in? Is it, have they invested in like mountain bike and sports stuff before?
Yeah. So no, not really. So the biggest investor is a guy named Scott, and he is actually a plumbing truck owner, a plumbing company owner in Dallas. And he
I think I met him, and we were parked next to him. He seemed like a cool guy.
That's cool.
Was he out there on the little blue e-bike?
Yeah. He's super cool. I don't know if it's blue, but he has an e-bike. But yeah. So he first heard about the idea in June off of one of the Facebook posts. His friends sent him a Facebook post, and for some reason he just knew this is going to be successful. I'm gonna invest in this kid. I know this is going to be successful. And he told all of his friends and his business partners and his insurance guys, like, I'm gonna give $100K to a 17-year-old. And they all laughed at him. They're like, "Are you crazy? No, you aren't. Like, I'm not allowing you to give $100K to a 17-year-old. Are you crazy?" And he's like, I just know this is gonna be successful. Let's make it happen. I'm gonna give $100K to a high schooler. And he got called crazy and stupid by so many people, but he did it anyway. And he's like, "Rhett, here's the money. I just know this is gonna work." So super, super cool guy. And he's also like huge beard, full of tattoos. Yeah. Not your standard investor at all.
Yep.
He's also a really funny guy. Yeah. In the Netflix Maybe documentary that we filmed, he has a famous quote, and he's like, "Well, I gave $100K to him, and then I thought, is he just gonna spend this on hookers and blow?"
It's a valid question.
Yeah.
But I assume you had like a pitch deck, and you had a plan, and you had a business plan.
Yeah, maybe I'm undermining this. I've spent 300 hours making a really good pitch deck. I made an in-depth P&L, very in-depth P&L. Like, a lot of bookkeeping. I spent a bunch of time perfecting my pitch deck to make it as good as possible. Hence why I raised the $350K in only 3 weeks. It's because I wanted to make that pitch deck way better than it was back in January. And so on. Like, yeah, maybe I'm undermining it a bit. There was still a bunch of work that went into it.
So what kind of progress have you made since opening, and what are your plans for the future?
So since opening, we have been pretty up and down, but overall profitable. Like, all 4 months since opening have been profitable by a significant amount too. We've spent $30,000 on stupid things that we should not be spending $30,000 on. Like a broken tractor, broken
Whose decision
machine,
was that?
Broken electricity. I don't know. A group minded. We were also super overemployed, bro. Build crew was overemployed, overpaid. we were overemployed for the first few weekends, so the expenses are through the roof. And I was like, why are we breaking so many things? Why am I paying so many people? So then I got it figured out, and dude, if I went back to November 3rd, I could have gotten us to March in literally half the expenses. So super high expenses, but I think those are just growing pains.
Hindsight's 2020, right?
I know.
Everything's easier decisions are so much easier to make looking back on them.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then on the revenue, just really up and down. So here's what's weird. No change in weather, no change in event. It's not like another event's going on in Texas. Like no change at all. Like one weekend we'll have like 50 people and another weekend we'll have 250 people. It's just like that random. And like the revenue, like if you look at the bookkeeping, it's like up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And it's kind of hard to track, and I can't get projections off of it.
Yeah.
I know that month by month it's been decently profitable, but then that ties back to the whole thing of with the land lease right now, we are not profitable. I think we can get to above break even because we can also do youth camps in summer, like $1,000 a kid, 40 kids. That's $40K in a month. That's crazy money. Mm-hmm. And I think we can get above break even for the land lease for sure. But I'm trying to give my investors a good return here. I'm trying to give them the returns that I promised, which I don't think we'll be able to do with the land lease. So the big thing that I'm really, really focusing on right now is selling the land. Because if we can get a buyer, we will be able to have no land lease, ensure a great future for the investors, ensure a profit for the current land investor, the guy who bought the land, and the guy who buys the property is going to own a sick property with the bike park that's increasing in value and has a bunch of benefits. It is literally a win-win-win-win situation if we sell this property. So right now, the current goal is to sell the property. It's going to go live in a week or two, or maybe like 3 weeks, but...
So what kind of buyer are you looking for? Is it going to be somebody like an investor, like a business owner, or is it going to be somebody who just lives on the property and lets you take care of everything? The little house.
I'm looking for anyone that would buy the property.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
there's probably a specific kind of person that's going to want that kind of property, right?
Yeah. So like, if you're a purely financially interested investor, like if you invest in the S&P 500 or something else, you're going to make a better return year over year, because that's just how land works. Sure. Like, look, land value does increase, and yes, you will get a percentage of profits if you buy this land, but no one really wants to do it for purely financial reasons. So we're taking a little bit of a different angle and saying, okay, so here, let me back up a little bit. If this was the cattle meadow hunting property that it was back in June, it would be able to sell at its value of $3 million within like 45 days, 60 days, just like as a normal ranch property in Texas would. Though the listing price is $3.175 million, so I don't know if we're going to sell it at $3 million or lower. We'll see. That's more logistical stuff. If you're interested in the sale, reach out to me. But yeah,
reach out to me. I'll help you.
Yeah, yeah. That's more logistical stuff on the numbers there, but 3 million ish, probably higher, maybe lower. But now, because a bike park is operating on a weekend, someone who would otherwise buy the meadow cattle hunting property is now not going to buy it, right? Because there's like, oh no, they're running a bike park on Saturday and Sunday. Now, no, that sucks. So I'm not going to go spend the $3.175 million anymore. But here's the thing. Look, I'm going to give you free ranch maintenance. So if your septic tank breaks or if the road needs maintenance, I got you. I'll give you free ranch upgrades. If you want cows for free, I'll do it. If you want your ponds stocked, if you want the grass seeded, if you want fish in your ponds, I will literally pay for all that and do it all for you. If you want free access to the bike park, I hope that's obvious that you'll get it. And if you want a percentage of profits, yes, like a percentage of weekly profit or weekly revenue, I will totally do that. And I'll just hand you a check every week. And a huge list of other benefits as well, like free animals. We can do hunting rights for you. We can cover all the insurance and liability, obviously. So there's really only one downside to buying the land, which is, look, we're going to have a running bike park on Saturday and Sunday. But other than that, completely private to you 5 days a week. The house is always private to you, bike park or not. And the upper 40 acres that we don't touch are always private to you and quiet. And you can't hear the bikers or see the bikers. Like, it's like just your private 40 acres. And I hope that someone sees a list of benefits and realizes that it outweighs the one con of a running bike park on Saturday and Sunday. So I'm seeing a buyer that sees this property as a kickback property where they don't want to deal with ranch maintenance. And if they want to get ranch upgrades, they don't want to pay for it. They just want a kickback property that they can go and enjoy life on. Yeah. That's the type of buyer that I'm looking for. And on top of that, the kickback property owner is going to get some money back. And it's still a sufficient return, a return that's going to beat inflation, a return that's like year over year making financial sense. Maybe it's not a great investment, but like it's really not that many downsides to the land sale. And from the realtors and brokers that I've talked to, it's looking pretty likely that we'll be able to sell within 12 months, but I'm looking to sell within 3 months. And worst case scenario, we don't sell. Look, bike park's still going to be more than break even. Hopefully we get the bike park to be more than profitable. I just want to give my investors a sufficient return. And when you take away $25K a month, it makes investor returns way better.
Yeah, I don't think I would consider a bike park in my house a con personally, but
yeah.
So you mentioned something to me in a text yesterday that's happening in South Texas. Is that something that's a done deal or something you can talk about?
Oh yeah, I'll talk about it. Yeah, so I think it's like a 90% chance that I'm building a bike park for SpaceX in like 3 weeks. So I had a mutual connection to SpaceX. Well, basically, a guy from my school was talking with a guy who knew a guy that worked at SpaceX.
That's how business works right there.
Yeah, and the guy who knew
the guy.
and the guy who knew the guy that knew me was like, wait, isn't there that one kid at that one school that's like making a bike park? And the guy that knows me was like, yes, there is a kid. And then they're like, hey, look, we all just moved from California and we're used to biking. And now we live in the most boring town in Texas. And like life here, this town is kind of lame. Can we get something fun here and like have that kid maybe go over here? And he's like, yes, bro, that would be such a good idea. Let's go send an email to my boy Rhett and see if he's down. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course I'm down. SpaceX wants me to build a bike park for them and make their life more fun there. And like, yeah, that's the dopest opportunity ever. So I visited SpaceX 3 days ago and it was a really fun trip. Scouted the whole property, met a bunch of amazing people at SpaceX. And I think I'm going down there again in 3 weeks to make this bike park happen.
That's by Brownsville, right?
Yes. So flattest land you'll ever see. And just a jump park, like 9th Street, but more for mountain bikes is, I guess, the best way to describe it.
Something
It's
smaller.
crazy flat. Yeah. 9th Street, like same property size.
Oh, okay.
And just imagine like those jumps, but like instead of 60-degree loops, like 30-degree loops. So yeah, looking forward to it. I know. I really am. So that's cool. And now, if you want to talk about future opportunities, I'm down to get into that.
Go for it.
Okay, cool. So now that Station Mountain is fully open, I guess this is my first time I'm publicly saying this, but I don't really plan as being like an entire 100% devoted full manager to Station Mountain in 5 years. Like I plan on passing it off to a manager and kind of gradually getting less day-to-day involved at Station Mountain, just like a bunch of people do with other bike parks and other ski resorts. There's nothing wrong with that, to go chase my dreams of doing something bigger. I really, really, really want to make the world's best bike park. I do. I want to make the next Whistler. I want to make something better than Whistler. I think there's a huge opportunity, because think about it. If you're Vail and you have a summer bike park, it's very average. And there's hundreds of average bike parks in the US that don't make great money, such as Vail Bike Park itself, or North Star, or Angel Fire, Taos, like all these other bike parks. I mean, maybe not Angel Fire, but they're getting like 200 riders a day and they're kind of at break even. They just do it as like a summer marketing program. If someone gets hurt, that's a $20 million lawsuit. If they're going to get $2 million, they're going to put that towards snowmakers instead of their bike park. Like, running a bike park just doesn't make that much financial sense for this ski resort industry, because bike parks don't get that much demand. So many ski resorts are very closed to making good bike parks. But here's the thing. There's a difference between an average bike park or a good bike park. Like there's not much of a difference between an average and a good bike park. But there's a huge difference between a good bike park and Whistler.
Yeah. Like
Angel Fire, in my opinion, is way more fun than Trestle. And they're not getting that many people because they're great. Like, they're a great bike park, but they're not amazing. Mm-hmm. Like, this is good versus great versus amazing. But Whistler, because it's so amazing, because it's just the outright definitive world's best bike park, is literally, not even kidding, getting 30 times more demand than Angel Fire. They pulled in 300,000 people during their Crankworks weekend. They added $50 million to their economy in 1 week because of the Crankworks weekend. They're getting more people during these summer events than their winter events. Their hotels and restaurants are booked during the summer. The total economic impacts on the Canadian GDP and the Whistler / Squamish GDP for biking is like absurd. It's through the roof. And Vail Resorts actually owns Whistler, and they're making bank through Whistler, and they focus on Whistler, and they know that like they're going to get their money there. And the amount of money and demand and all that Whistler makes is crazy. And Whistler is one of the few summer towns, other than Aspen and a few others, that you can go to and see booked hotels and booked restaurants. Like, it's rare to see that in the summer at any other resort. So my pitch is to go to the ideal resort is Park City and say, look, I know you don't want to make a mediocre bike park. I get it. I don't recommend that. But if you want to go all in and build 150 trails, build a huge indoor Woodward style facility, build like a 1,000 hitch jump line, not a 75 hits, like 1,000 hits, like a crazy amount of World Race Cup tracks. If you want to get World Cup races here, like if you want to get all the pros here, if you want to maybe hold like a hard line here, like I'm talking like if you want to go all out on you're going to make the outright definitive world best bike park, I guarantee you're going to make so much money. And I guarantee your hotels and restaurants are going to be booked, and your summertown won't be that depressing. I mean, there's so many benefits. So my goal is to convince a resort to allow me to make the world's best bike park, not just a bike park, but the world's best bike park, outright definitive, better than Whistler, best. And these resorts, such as Park City, are the perfect place to do it. They have a huge base area. So think about Park City, huge town in the base area, and they get a bunch of people visiting there just for like hiking and having fun in the town. They're right next to a giant airport. There's already a bunch of mountain bikers in Salt Lake City and a bunch of bike trails in the Utah area. They have a really good mountain full of lifts, like 3,000 plus feet of vert. And it just baffles me. I'm like, why aren't you making a good bike park? I mean, they literally just have cross-country trails. And they're like, oh, liability, oh, insurance. And I'm like, but you don't understand. Like, here, think about it. I'll make a shell company. So I'm going to go ahead and raise your $30 million necessary to make this bike park. I'm going to handle all insurance and liability. I will pay for your lift cable decay. I will pay for your restroom usage, your parking lot usage. I will pay for literally every single expense even related to the bike park that you can think of. So look, you don't have to put any money towards this. If we get sued, they sue me, not you. You don't have to deal with us dealing with any of your facilities. Like, we'll pay for literally all of it. Like, worst case scenario, nothing happens. Best case scenario, you're making bank. I'm just asking you to allow me to make a company that's going to build a bike park on your property, and we'll give you like 50% of profit or something super high. I mean, how can you not how can you not say yes to that offer? And my goal is to send this pitch to 50 plus ski resorts and hope that one says yes, just like I did with Station Mountain investors and land investors. So maybe instead of 123 out of 123 saying no, it's 49 out of 50 saying no.
Yeah. Well, you get something to refer back to, like, look, I already built a bike park.
Yeah, because now I have much more of a resume than Rough Hollow.
Yeah.
Yeah, much more.
Well, we refer, when we're talking with the city and like trying to get parks built and stuff like that, we refer back to Bentonville all the time because they have managed to make an attraction out of the middle of nowhere in Arkansas.
Yes.
Like it's Walmart town. There's not anything else there, but people are constantly moving from Austin to Arkansas, and that city's all in on that. And they obviously are making money from it, and they're obviously investing and getting more people coming there. And I just don't see why the city of Austin can't see that same kind of growth, and just kind of, they're not super supportive of mountain bikers, I don't think.
Yeah. I see that same thing, but same with almost all cities.
Yeah.
Bentonville's just built different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we need some kind of massive investor to start building trails like that around here. And then,
maybe so. Well, I tried with public land a while before I kind of coped with private land when I had the initial idea for Station Mountain, but it's almost possible. It also takes way too long. No one wants to wait 10 years.
Yeah.
No one.
Well, anyway, man, I think we got a pretty good time going here. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
Anything else I want to talk about? Hold on. There actually might be. Let me think about. Oh yeah. Well, I also want to clarify something that I've been getting like some hate for sometimes, of like me seeing Station Mountain as like a selfish thing, as a way to make money. Bro, all right, this whole time been a volunteer project. I haven't pocketed a single dollar from Station Mountain ever. Not during the whole build process, not during me being out there. Like, I work on Station Mountain, computer work plus trail work plus riding, like 60 hours a week, and I haven't made a single dime. And like, I don't plan on it. I reinvest everything back into the business. My goal with Station Mountain, the reason why I want to be profitable, is only for the investors. I see Station Mountain as an entrepreneurial stepping stone to my future. My goal is to give a return to my investors. All my equity, I always reinvest. I don't care about it. And the only reason why like I have these big entrepreneurial billionaire-esque dreams, like to make the world's best bike park or even do something more than that, like the reason why I have these dreams is specifically because like I want to help people out. Like I want to use my money towards charity. I could live in a van if I want to do. If you ask like what do you see your 50-year-old self to be like, I see myself as like a billionaire that lives in a van. Seriously. That's like my ideal future. I could really, really care less about anything to do with money, but my overall life goal from like a more real standpoint is I want to make the maximum positive impact possible. So I want to like make as much money as possible to go donate as much money as possible towards like maximum impact philanthropy. So like not something like mountain biking where like the impact per dollar is pretty low, like something like malaria or hunger where like you're getting a really good impact per dollar. So like my life goal is like use this money towards charity, just like a really high impact per dollar thing. And I don't want to like make any money to like get Lamborghinis or fancy cars or anything, but yes, I do plan on making as much money as possible from the world's best bike park. It's the goal of entrepreneurship. It's the goal of business. And the golden thing about entrepreneurship is that making a business can actually benefit society. Like I guarantee this world's best bike park will benefit society. But no, for all the people that are saying, oh, you're chasing the entrepreneurial dreams, you want to be selfish because you want to use money, you're paying yourself from station. No, I'm not. That's not any of my goals.
I mean, even if you were, like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to have a business and wanting to be profitable, I don't think.
No. Well, I definitely do want to be profitable, but
yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking money home. Like, everybody has a job. Everybody has either works for a business or has a business. And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that, you know?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Rhett, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. I think I can tell, and I think probably our audience can tell what a smart guy you are and how driven you are. And it's exciting to see somebody so young working so hard and making things happen. Do you want to share any kind of socials or contact information? Station Mountain website, Instagram, all that stuff.
Follow at Station Mountain Bike Park on Instagram. Follow at Rhett Rads, my personal Radin page. That's where you can get all your info.
Awesome. Well, I am Brooks Lawson. This has been the Awesome Mountain Biking Podcast. You can find all things Brooks at brookslawson.com. All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Peace.